Victoria Tippins. I am a birth educator and a birth worker and a mom of 3, and I've been attending births for 15 years. And so throughout that time, I created this 5-step process to support parents in feeling confident and prepared for birth, and it is called the Peaceful Birth Method. And so part of that 5-step process is learning how to cope with labor. And so within coping with labor, I kind of broke down all these different areas, things that you can focus on for 5 different steps. So we're going to cover those 5 steps to coping with labor today. I've been teaching this 5-step framework to coping with labor specifically in my Peaceful Birth Method coaching program and in my in-person classes that I've been teaching for the past 6.5, 7 years. I surveyed the first 100 moms that I taught it to in a personalized capacity, which means that instead of them, learning the information, and you will learn so much information today, but they're also getting personal support in applying that information and organizing it and integrating it and making it personalized to them and their situation, their preferences and their fears and things like that. I found that people who took that approach, 96% of them had an unmedicated birth of the 100 that wanted to have an unmedicated birth. So I really believe in this framework. I really believe in these 5 steps. It's a combination of evidence-based tools that you can use to support labor progress, reduce unnecessary pain from positioning issues, and to help you cope with labor, and emotional preparation tools and frameworks that I have created over time, some that I've learned from my own healing journey, others that I've taken from midwives and other birth workers. So it's kind of a combination of all that wisdom and those evidence-based tools. And so that's what we'll be going over today. If you're interested in just spending some time with me and doing a free call, I'll clarify the steps needed for you to feel confident and prepared for birth, and then explore how my coaching program could maybe be beneficial for you and see if it's a good fit. You'll walk away from the call feeling like, okay, I know what steps are needed for me personally. So that's the benefit and what you'll get from the call, even if you don't want to do the coaching program. Without further ado, let's drop in. I want to first start by sharing with you that there is no wrong choices in birth. There's no wrong choice. It doesn't matter if you want to have a planned cesarean. It doesn't matter if you want to have a normal physiologic, hands-off, low intervention birth. If you want an epidural, it doesn't matter. And I am not interested in telling anyone what the right choice is for them, because I don't know what the right choice is for you. What I do know is that if you go into birth feeling confident in your tools for being collaborative in your care, to make empowered decisions, you have support and tools to help you overcome fear, build relationships with your fear, get support with your fears, and you have tools for making choices in alignment with love deliberately, right? From that place of love and not making choices out of fear. That is what really sets up birth to be positive experience, even if you end up maybe getting an epidural and you didn't want one, or even getting a C-section and you didn't want one. Because instead of feeling cornered or bullied and feeling like things are happening to you without your understanding or consent, you are collaborative, you're part of the journey, you're making informed choices, and you're educated. And so specifically around coping with labor today, I'm going to teach you these 5 different areas that you can learn about to help you really enter birth feeling more confident and prepared around coping specifically. There are so many different aspects to birth education and things to prepare around, right? With advocacy, with emotional prep, with physical prep, with learning how to reduce the risk for tears. And all of those can be saved for another time. Today, we're really just going to focus on coping. I want to also make it clear that there's nothing wrong with getting an epidural if you plan to have a natural birth and then that ends up being the right choice for you, and that's totally okay. What really matters is that you made that choice because you're like, I was prepared, I understood the risks, benefits, and alternatives, and still I felt like that was the right choice for me, and I made that choice. Not, I was so overcome with fear and so overwhelmed and I didn't have any tools, and then I got bullied into making that choice. That's the difference between having a positive experience with an epidural and having a more negative experience with an epidural, if that kind of makes sense. So, okay, so before I go deep into the first step, which is emotional preparation, I'm going to give you some tools for overcoming fear, specifically around pain and things like that. But I just want to address the culture a little bit. I think it's very possible that people on this training are from different parts of the world. We have lots of moms all around the world in our academy, which is really awesome. And so every culture is very different when it comes to supporting normal, natural, unmedicated births. In the West, especially in the US, it's very, very common for someone to say, I want a natural birth. And then for everyone in your community to be like, you can't do that. You'll be begging for the epidural. That is so rude and completely inappropriate way to talk to someone about their birth preferences. And if that has ever happened to you, I'm really, really sorry. And I want you to know that you're not alone in that. And that's something that's unfortunately quite common for moms to want that and for there to be a lot of pushback. And the reason why there can be so much pushback and lack of understanding and support around a normal, natural, unmedicated birth, which seems like a really simple path for someone to want to choose for themselves, is that in the early 1900s, male obstetricians or male doctors realized that birth was an untapped market. So they decided to drive birthing families into profiting hospital establishments so they can capitalize on birth and make the most money. And the only way that we can make the most money off of people giving birth is to somehow convince them that their bodies are broken and they need all this stuff outside of themselves in order to do it, right? Like that's how we get people to take interventions. That's how we get everyone to believe that birth is so inherently painful and terrifying and you're crazy to want to have a natural birth. And then we're going to make all this money off of everyone getting epidurals and so on and so forth. And part of that was driving out the competition, right? They launched these horrible, inaccurate, racist campaigns demonizing midwives to try to get everyone to believe that midwives are dirty, that normal physiologic birth is something that only poor people do, and being in the hospital and getting all these drugs is the right way to do it. So this did happen 100 years ago, and it was the beginning of a huge cultural shift. And now we have research that shows that the midwifery model of care is safe, that normal physiologic birth is in many cases safer because getting medications in labor all come with risks, right? And sometimes those risks can lead to a cascade of the need for other interventions. That doesn't always happen, obviously, but that is possible. I just want to validate if you are wanting a normal, just unmedicated physiologic birth, I want to reflect the truth to you that your body was made to do this. You have everything you need inside of yourself in order to do it. And we do have programming from the movies and the media, mostly written by men in Hollywood who don't know anything about birth, to dramatize birth and make us feel like birth is inherently super scary. And there are like stories from my ancestors, right, from like the people before us who maybe had negative hospital experiences and were told, oh, if you weren't here, you would have died, or if, you know, your pelvis was too small, good thing we intervened. And in some cases, yeah, that's true. And in other cases, that actually wasn't true. And the problem was created by a inappropriate and non-evidence supported use of intervention that left that person to walk away feeling like they have to basically process. It made us feel like we need all this stuff outside of ourselves in order to do it, right? So I just want to reflect to all of you that very rarely do you actually need anything outside of yourself in order to give birth. And normal physiologic unmedicated births are very, very, very cool experiences. If we were to like look back at like the ancestral ways of giving birth in many different lineages all around the world, they involved tradition, they involved song, they involved herbs, they involved different kinds of rituals, they involve different kinds of positions and support tools. And it's beautiful. And birth in many cultures around the world was seen as something that was very beautiful, like a really special experience to go through. A ceremony is something that is sacred, a celebration of life, of bringing your baby into the world. And so if you are wanting to experience something like that for your birth, if there's a part of you that feels like deep down, I know that my birth can be this really beautiful, incredible, magical experience. And I also want to be able to, like, I want to tap into that. Like, I want to feel and experience how beautiful it can be, even if no one around you understands that, even if you don't have the language to express that, even to yourself. Just know that I see that in you and I believe in that birth can be beautiful. I believe that your birth can be beautiful. And something so special about an unmedicated birth is this period of transition. This period is also where the coping tools that I'm going to teach you become the most necessary and the most needed often, because transition is that point in time when we go from our normal rhythm and repetition and relaxation. We'll go deeper into that later, but that's when you have a rhythm and you cope with your contraction using your rhythm, and you rest in between and you do it again. And then we get to a point where like our rhythm isn't working anymore, and the things that were working before aren't working anymore, and suddenly maybe we feel a little different. The body is releasing adrenaline to give us an energy boost to push. We might start feeling some pressure. Some moms will nap throughout transition. They'll actually like fall asleep because the adrenaline can stall contractions. And so your transition could literally be you taking a 10-minute nap and waking up and pushing your baby out. Other moms feel like because of that adrenaline, I don't know if I can do this anymore. My labor coping tools aren't working anymore. I guess I need the epidural. And it's very common to get an epidural around 8 or 9 centimeters when someone is at the end and they're around that transition period of time, because they don't have that plan B. We've learned about the labor comb. We've learned about the birth ball. We've learned about all those external tools. Yeah, so like we can learn about all those things. And it's great to have all those tools, and we'll cover a lot of those tools today in our training. Please have those tools. But you might get to a point where those tools aren't going to work anymore. I got to a point with my third where I like threw my birth affirmation playlist across the room, and I was like, F this thing, nothing's working. You know, hearing it was my own voice I was listening to, saying like, my body knows how to do this. I'm going to breathe my baby down. I was like, no, that's not working. Nothing is working. And so when we get to that place, if you do, of nothing is working, what are we going to do? If we don't have other tools that are integrated in our body, tools that are emotional support tools, we'll probably just feel like, I guess I have to get the epidural because we don't have this plan B. We didn't do that deeper preparation work for these harder moments. And that's okay if you want to get the epidural, but for someone who is really wanting to avoid that, it's important to not just learn about the external coping tools, because they can only take you so far. We need emotional support and we need physical support when we're coping with labor. And emotional support typically looks like, yeah, I'm gonna write down birth affirmations. I'm gonna like maybe do a few guided meditations on my pregnancy. Maybe I'll journal a little bit. And that should be fine. And like, that's great. And please do that. And that probably will take you quite far. But just practicing a little bit of mindfulness in pregnancy isn't enough to give you the integrated emotional support in labor. And we need something that's personalized, something we've practiced, that's true to us, that we continue to work on throughout our pregnancy, and that we integrate. And I'll explain that a little bit more later. But the reason why I brought all this up is because it's normal to face self-doubt. And I want all of you to be aware of that. It is normal to go through an experience that you have never gone through before. Even if you've never given birth to this baby, but you've given birth to previous babies. Each time you're giving birth to a new baby and you're doing something new, and you're in an experience of the unknown, and you've never been there before. We don't do anything we've never done before with 100% confidence and perfection. We learn that we can do it as we do it, right? And part of that is facing our own self-doubt. And we face that self-doubt, and then we go, I don't know if I can do this, but I'm showing myself that I can do it. Oh my gosh, I did it. I'm amazing. And that's what birth is. And that is why unmedicated births can be very, very cool. Why a lot of moms feel like they could conquer the world after they give birth, because they revealed to themselves the power that already was within them. You already are so much more powerful than you know. You have so much power and wisdom inside of yourself. Birth offers you the opportunity to awaken to that power by having you go through an experience where you face self-doubt, where you go past, like beyond a limit that you thought you could go, and then you go past it. So the reason why transition specifically is so special is because when you're in transition, if you have this experience where you say, I don't know if I can do this anymore, that is happening because the person who you are in that moment can't do it. And that's why you're feeling like I can't do it. And that's why you're saying I can't do it, because who you are in that moment can't, but who you're becoming can. And that is why transition is so special. That is why birth is an initiation, right, into a new role in life. You are becoming someone new, and you are learning that you can do something that you didn't think that you could do before. And so we need to give everyone good quality, evidence-based, personalized, integrated, practiced, supportive tools to help you in every aspect of the experience, not only physically, but emotionally too. So that if you get to a moment where you're like, I'm facing my fears, I'm facing my self-doubt, the double hip squeeze and the like birth affirmation track and like whatever, like nothing is working, you're like, I'm prepared for this because I have created personalized tools. And this is why my coaching program can be so helpful, because in that program, we can create tools for you specifically, working with someone who has a framework. If that is something that anyone is interested in, I pop the link to book a free call with me, and you're welcome to click on that and book the call. Let's go into step 1 now, which is emotional preparation. So now I'm going to give you some of these tools. And I want to be clear that like every one of the things, I'm going to talk about 5 different things today, and all 5 of those I could talk about for many hours. So I don't want you to think like I learned about coping with labor and I don't have to learn anything else because I attended one training. Please keep learning. Please keep practicing. This is like, I'm going to pack in as much as I can for the time that I have for each one of these steps, but just know that they could go so much deeper than where we're going to go today just because we have an hour. Okay, so emotional preparation. Let's see. I want to talk to you, let's specifically talk about building relationships with fears. So you can have something personalized to support you in getting through any hard moments. And this is something that I like to spend a lot of time with my moms working on. And so I'm just going to kind of introduce you to it. And so it's this idea that, I don't know if any of you have heard of internal family systems before, but it's an idea that we are, in our psychology, made up of all these different parts. You fell off the swing maybe as a child, and then someone like wants you to get on a swing again later, like is like, let's go to the swings, and then you're like, oh, I'm kind of afraid of the swings, I don't want to go on the swings, right? There's a part of you that was created in the moment when you fell off the swings that said, I better stay away from swings so that I stay safe, right? So we can create these kind of different parts of ourselves in our psychology that can bring up fear. The reason why I want to introduce you to the concept of internal family systems is that fear is not something that is like a hurdle that you jump over. That's not an approach I want anyone to try to take when it comes to working with fear or building self-awareness and building relationships to ourselves on this emotional preparation journey when it comes to coping with labor. Because if we're trying to overcome the fear and get rid of it, we're just resisting it. And resisting your fear will make it worse. And resisting fear is something that can happen very subconsciously. Sometimes it requires a lot of support to kind of unpack and figure out what the fear is, where it's coming from, and then how are we going to move forward with it. And the approach that I like to take with my moms is really personalized. But in general, what is really helpful is for everyone in general is to, if you notice that you have any kind of fear come up around birth, like maybe let's say it's pain, or being out of control or tearing or something like that. So if you're like, oh, what if it's like really painful? You know, if you like have that come up, if you go, it'll be fine, whatever, or like, I don't know, you know, like if we kind of push that fear to the side, what's happening is we're building resistance between a part of us that is coming up trying to be loved, right? There's just a part of you that wants to be seen, that wants to be validated and wants to be loved. And so we can practice leaning into emotional discomfort in pregnancy to help us build relationships with fears so that when we are in labor, we get triggered, like all that stuff comes up. We're not like you build up this bottle of stuff and then it just explodes and then you're really struggling emotionally. And a lot of moms will say, and then I just freaked out and I got the epidural, or I gave up and I got the epidural. I got so afraid I got bullied into this thing. We want to build relationships to all those parts of ourselves with love, with openness and total acceptance, so that when we are in labor, if we have a fear come up, we can go, oh, hey girl, I know you. Right? Like, you're in my fear of this thing happening, and like, we're okay. And we have communicated that to our support people. And so they know, and I can say like, hey, I'm having this like fear come up. And then our support people are like, okay, we know about that. We've talked about that. And there's this awareness. This is a framework that I created that I'll teach you all now. I have like so many frameworks for emotional preparation. This is one of my favorites. If you notice any of those thoughts come up, there are 3 steps for you to do to help you to work through that fear and start to work on building that relationship in a positive way and to drop the resistance, right? Because when we drop resistance, I would say the charge goes away. The charge like significantly reduces. It feels so bad and scary because we're resisting it. And so when we are not doing that anymore, it usually feels a lot better quite instantly. So first we're going to see it. I have like this feeling coming up right now, like when I left my provider's appointment and they said something like, you know, tearing just happens sometimes, but we'll do what we can to avoid it. And that didn't really feel very reassuring. And now I feel kind of triggered. and like, what's going on? And so instead of being like, oh, hopefully it's okay and we keep living our life, we're just going to explore like, what's going on? Why am I having that thing come up? And then we can see it like, oh, yeah, like I have this fear of tearing. It just like feels really scary. It's something that I really want to avoid. I feel really afraid of that. So we're just seeing it. Okay, hi, fear. I see that I have a fear. We're seeing it. That's the number one most important thing. And when we've dropped the resistance, we're seeing it, probably it's already feeling a little bit better, hopefully. And it's not so like big and like in the background, like looming over you, because we're like, I'm seeing you. We're taking our power back, right? And then in addition to that, like the next step would be to validate it. It's okay to be afraid. Yeah, like I'm going through this new experience. I've heard a lot of scary stories. Like it's totally understandable that I'm afraid. It's okay to be afraid. So we see the fear, we validate the fear. And the fear is not the shadow. The fear is you. The fear is a part of you from a younger point in your life, probably, that heard like a story about your mom tearing and got really scared of it and now is being triggered, right? It's just like this adolescent part of you or something. Oh, that's just an example, but it's just a part of you that is afraid and that needs to be loved and validated. So we're going to see it. We're going to validate. The next thing we're going to do is love her. So we're just going to say, I love you. And it's really as simple as, oh gosh, yeah, I see that I have this fear. It's okay to be afraid. I love you. That's all you have to do. And it's so powerful just choosing to love yourself in those moments of fear rather than choosing to resist it. You will not be perfect at this. I'm not perfect at this, and I created this framework. I mess up all the time, but then I just return to doing it again. Sometimes we have parts of ourselves come up that are really hard to love. like frustrated that this like trauma pattern keeps coming up, or this fear of abandonment, and it's just really getting in the way, Like I've totally experienced that too. That can happen sometimes. And so if you're like, I can't love myself right now, I'm just so frustrated about this thing that keeps coming up, that's okay. What you can do is love the one who's struggling to love that part of yourself. So that just might look like, I see that I'm having a really hard time loving this part of myself right now. And that's okay. Sometimes there are parts that are really hard to love. And that is you just loving, right? That part of yourself that's having a hard time loving. And that's all we need to do. And then we leave it there. You don't have to do a whole bunch of deep, like emotional preparation work. What I do invite you to do though, is to get personalized support, because other people who have tools and skills can help you unpack and help you see things that you can't see yourself, to continue the work. So don't just do a little bit of this at the end of pregnancy, practice it all throughout your pregnancy, and just make a commitment to yourself right now in this moment that you are going to choose to return to loving yourself. And you can recognize also in this moment, I invite you to recognize that making the choice to returning to loving yourself, meaning you're not going to be perfect at it, but you're committed to returning to loving yourself, is going to guide your children, right? To do the same thing, to relate to their emotions in the same way. So really, it's such a gift to be pregnant and to have that landscape of emotion come up, even though it's like kind of sometimes in the way, sometimes really inconvenient and something you don't want to be dealing with. Some people have a lot of emotion and some people don't have a lot. But either way, like at some point, you'll probably feel some nervousness or anxiety or fear or unsureness, like that can come up. And when we commit to practicing relating to ourselves from a place of validation, witnessing, and love, we will create that habit in our life. And then we will model that to our children. And you can dedicate all the work that you do, if you're a spiritual person, as a prayer, if you're not, more just as a self-intention, to support creating a better world for our children, right? So we can dedicate loving ourselves to the regeneration of all people loving themselves, to the regeneration of all women and mothers loving themselves, so that the children can grow up seeing their parents loving themselves, so that we can raise generations of children who love themselves, who love the planet, and that will ultimately, I believe, save the world. And that is why I do this work. That's why peaceful birth can heal the world. It starts with the woman, though. It starts with the mother loving herself first and recognizing that she doesn't need all this outside of herself in order to give birth, that she has the power within herself and she's willing to connect to that power. Okay, well, we can talk about that for 5 hours because that's my favorite topic, but we're going to move on. So let's talk about number 2, which would be sound. So sound is a really amazing tool to help you cope with labor. Sound would be like, moaning, making some kind of noise from your mouth, right? To help you to cope with labor specifically, or to help you relax in between contractions. I don't know if y'all have been to a yoga class, and they might say, take a deep breath in and let it out. Right? Like we can use the sound to kind of help guide our body to relax and to help kind of process out old energy, to bring ourselves present into the space. Sound can also be used to help you get through a contraction if you're experiencing some intensity. We want your baby to come out that way. So the energy of birth goes down and out. So we don't want to, in most cases, send our sound up. We can use our sound as a way to direct the energy down, directing your focus down, which means you're directing, releasing tension and softening and relaxing downward in all of those muscles. Sending it up and up, we can start to kind of tense. We can have a harder time coping sometimes. So if a mom is going, right? Like we're kind of sending it up and out. And I don't want to say that there's any wrong way to cope with labor, because there is not. And for some people, that's what they need to do. And that's okay. But as a birth worker who's I've attended recently, it was my 60th birth, but I've supported hundreds of families in a childbirth educator or student midwife capacity. And I have witnessed a lot of people struggle, and they start doing that. They start going, right? And then like we send it back down. And sending it back down is what is going to help that parent most of the time be able to get through those contractions. So as a birth worker, if I were to see someone, I can think of one story specifically I'll share of a mom. I was actually a student midwife. She was in the birth tub. She was really struggling, and her face got all tense, and she was gripping the edge of the birth tub and then like this. And then she said, like, I can't do this anymore. And then she started going like, like that. And we're like sending the energy up and out. So I got down in front of her and I looked her in the eyes to give her that feeling of connection. I gave her emotional support and reassurance. And I said, I'm right here with you. Your body knows what to do. Right. And I gave her some of that affirmation. And then I said, on the next contraction, let's do it together. But this time, how about you look in my eyes and we'll make the sounds together. So let's work on dropping your jaw, relaxing your shoulders, and making the sounds go low. And we did that. And that is what helped her get through it. Having someone in front of her who could just give her a little bit of guidance, because she was facing a lot of self-doubt and just didn't have the tools, and she needed a little guidance. And sometimes we need that. And so sound is something that you can use to help you, again, bring the energy down and to help you cope with the contraction. So there's no wrong sound to make. You might not make any sound. You might make a lot of sound. My second birth and my third birth, I was like, whoa, right? Like all throughout the contractions until I got to active labor. Not active labor, sorry, until I got to transition. When I got to transition, the intensity went up, and then I got really inward, and I was just quiet, and I was just like, and like that's all that I could do. I like couldn't speak, I couldn't make any sound. It made it worse to try to make sound. Before it helped, and then it didn't help anymore. So sometimes that can happen. So labor sounds kind of sound like, oh, 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 right, something like that, or like, whoa. And what a support person could do if you're wanting support with your sounds is to make the sound with you and try to have it go lower, 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 as low as we can get it to go, and let it kind of fizzle out. Right at the end of the contraction, we just kind of go, right. And if the support person does that, it can sometimes help the mom giving birth to also kind of bring their sounds down. Okay, I also just wanted to mention about sound. We want you to feel safe to take up space. And so this is where the emotional preparation and inner work can come into play, because whatever's going to get your baby out naturally is going to be whatever comes naturally for you. And for some people, that is like making a lot of sound, being really noisy, even verbally expressing self-doubt. And for other people, they need to be dark and quiet in the corner, and they don't want anyone to bother them. And we don't know exactly how we're going to be in labor. Some people are really chatty in their personality, and we can assume they might kind of be that way in labor, but maybe they won't be either. So there's a lot of different ways that it can unfold. What's important is that you give yourself the permission to allow yourself to express yourself in whatever way you feel is best. Because if you are holding back at all it will make your labor longer and harder and more painful, and also more of a negative experience. And I personally experienced that with one of my births, holding back, resisting, and fighting contractions. And I had the like textbook perfect birth. I had all the things I wanted, and everything went so smoothly, but it felt even traumatic for me because I was in so much emotional anguish throughout the birth, and I was having a hard time expressing myself. I was having a hard time feeling safe. And I was in this like kind of self-isolated place. And that's what made that birth so much harder than it had to be. So giving yourself the permission to be messy, to be loud, to make sound. If that makes you feel uncomfortable, let's explore that a little bit. What is that part of you that is coming up that's feeling a little bit worried about that? Can we know that part of ourselves? Can we like explore that part? If you're in my coaching program, that's something we could do together. You can also express that to your support people. I'm noticing that, like, I know that I might need to make sound and be loud, but I'm kind of worried about it. Tell your provider, be vulnerable and express that to the people who you can trust. So maybe we can create a plan around how we're going to help you feel safe in expressing and doing what you need to do to get your baby out. The next step is breath. And so breath is something that is very, very common, a tool like using breathing techniques, right? It's very common. It's something that I see often on social media. People often will come into my coaching program and say, I really want to learn breathing techniques, or I've been working on breathing techniques and that's like it. People will say, I've been eating dates, I'm rocking on the birth ball, I'm doing my breathing techniques. All those things are really great to do, but then we kind of leave the preparation for coping with labor there. Breathing techniques are effective, but I would say from my own wisdom, the least effective of the tools for most people, especially breathing techniques around counting. Please breathe throughout your labor. We want you to breathe. We want you to take slow, deep breaths. We want you and your baby to be well oxygenated, and your breath can help you cope with a contraction, and it can also help you relax in between a contraction. But these specific breathing techniques around counting, I find are not the most helpful, because when you're in labor, your thinking brain turns off. And so that allows the primal brain to turn on. And we need the primal brain to be on and the thinking brain to be off, because when the thinking brain is on, we kind of can get in the way of the normal physiology that's trying to happen. So, and counting in numbers is something that personally I've never actually seen in any of the births that I've been to. Moms use their breath in lots of different ways, but counting is not the way that we typically use our breath. And other people do count in labor, and it's okay if you want to do that too. But the counting is not something that I have a big emphasis around. In my coaching program, you will learn some of those. They're just not the highest on the priority list. What I will teach you now in the time that we have for breath is two different ways you can use it. One to cope and one to relax. So when you have a contraction, if you could use your breath to help you focus, focus helps you cope. When we start trailing off a little bit, like, I don't know if I can do this, we can like kind of get some self-doubt coming up. It can make the contractions feel harder. If we can focus on relaxing, that is what can help you get through a contraction well. Coping is really just about relaxing, and breath can help you relax. My first birth was pain-free. I didn't have any pain in my active labor at all. It was intense. It was more about like the mental to be in the ocean and to have a wave come and to be like, okay, I'm getting on the surfboard, I'm riding the surf, like the wave through, and then I'm getting off and I'm going to rest, and then I'm going to do that again. That required a lot of mental fortitude, a commitment to keep staying focused on what it was that I was doing. That was the hard part, but the actual physical experience wasn't hard. It was intense, but like it wasn't hard. And it was also cool. It was a really beautiful, beautiful experience. So I used my breath to help me focus by taking deep breaths and just keeping my attention on my breath. And if you're in my coaching program, you'll hear my speech. You'll learn a lot more about how we can have stuff come up for us, but we can always control where we put our attention. Practicing controlling your attention, practicing where you put your attention. And I have specific practices that I don't have time to teach now, but I do teach in my coaching program to help you to practice putting your attention on where you want your attention to be. Strengthens that neurological pathway. It strengthens that muscle. So when you are in birth, and you want to cope with contractions and they're getting more intense, you have practiced keeping your attention on the coping tool. You've practiced that, and that makes it easier for you to actually do that. So we want to focus on taking slow, deep breaths and just focusing on our breath to help ground us and keep us steady and focused on what it is that we're doing. The next thing you can do with your breath is use it to help you to relax in between contractions. When you're going through labor, you follow this framework from Penny Simkin. She's a well-known doula who passed away not too long ago. And she has, she teaches these 3 different steps to someone coping well in labor. And it's called the 3 R's: rhythm, repetition, and relaxation. So during a contraction, you will assume some kind of rhythm. So we're going to sway or moan or rock our hips on the ball, have someone squeeze our hips. We're doing something, using some kind of tool to help us get through the contraction. That is our rhythm. If you're having a hard time coping and you're like, what do I do? What should I do? It just means you haven't found your rhythm. It's really, really simple. We just want to find a rhythm. If you're doing your rhythm and then all of a sudden you're like, this isn't working anymore, maybe I need the epidural. I mean, yes, sometimes that is the right choice, but maybe also you just need a new rhythm. Your rhythm worked until it doesn't work, and now we need to find a new rhythm. So let's find a new rhythm, right? So we have our rhythm and we're going to do the rhythm until it doesn't work anymore. In between the rhythm, we relax. This is really important. And when it comes to support for support people, like giving you support, we want them to support you during your rhythm. Sometimes they're sitting on their hands and doing nothing. Sometimes they're touching you or giving you affirmations or doing something to help you cope. And then in between, they can help you relax. Also, sometimes they're leaving you alone, or they're giving you strokes down your back. They're saying, you did such a good job, that contraction's over. Take a deep breath, let it out, relax, right? They're jiggling your thighs. They have the rebozo or the scarf, maybe even using a pillowcase. If you're in my coaching program, you'll learn how to do that, where we kind of shimmy on each side and to shake up the back part of the pelvis and release tension. For doing something to help you relax in between the contraction. Breath is a way that you can, is a tool that you can use to help you cope with the contraction and relax in between. And I would call it a cleansing breath. So after you're done with the contraction, take a big deep breath in and then let it out. Right? Let's just like that example if you're at a yoga class. And if everyone could do that right now, let's just do it together. Big deep breath in. And to make a sound. Do you feel just your body kind of goes like, a little like, little relax. That's what that does. A cleansing breath. We're just going to return to a relaxed place and just kind of do one breath to just clear any tension or any stuck energy out of the body. Like, whew, now I'm a little more relaxed. So we can do that in between contractions. And I think it's really important to do that each time. And in my coaching program, I'll teach you a body scan method. So it's a way that we can practice to relax all the different parts of our muscles. We know we're supposed to relax in labor, but like we don't know how to relax. A lot of people don't know how to relax, especially if you live in the US, where we are a very like work-centered culture, like busy, busy, busy. Early bird gets the worm, and like those who sleep in are lazy, but we need to relax too because we're human beings, and relaxing is something that we don't really know how to do. Watching TV, is a form of rest, but it isn't an intentional, I'm going into relaxation mode now and I'm connected to myself and I know how to relax my body. It's a different form of relaxing. So learning how to actually relax your body is important. And so if you practice that in pregnancy, that can help you. So when you are going through labor, you know how to relax, not just your jaw and your shoulders, but your back, your belly, your hips, your legs, all the way down to your feet. And I don't know if you like go to work and then you notice like, oh my God, I'm like so hunched over and I wasn't even aware that I was holding tension in that part of my body. I do that too. A lot of people do that. And it's something that we can build awareness to. I tend to hold tension in this part of my body without even knowing it. How can I build a connection to that part of my body and to help it relax in pregnancy so that when I am actually in labor, I'm able to relax? And I teach pregnancy relaxations. I do have some tracks that are in the free course. More of them are in my paid program. And every month I'll do a live pregnancy relaxation. And I believe tomorrow, tomorrow I'm doing a live relaxation. So you can find that in the calendar tab if you want to come practice relaxing with me, and I'll help you with that. So breath is a way that you can it can support you in relaxing. So now let's move into my next step, which is relaxation. And this will be step 4, and then the last step is positions. So relaxation is so important throughout birth. Normal physiology works really, really well, and your body knows what to do, but we can get in the way often with a few different ways. We can get in the way if we don't do the right kind of emotional preparation. We might enter the fear, pain, tension cycle because we have a fear come up, and then we're going to respond by holding tension instead of responding by relaxing into it and like processing the fear and getting support with it, because we practice that. But if we haven't, we can hold tension, which makes the fear worse, which makes the pain worse. So we can prevent unnecessary pain from the fear, pain, tension cycle by doing the right kind of emotional preparation. In addition to that, the right kind of physical preparation, I teach a framework for this, and some of it is free in the free birth course. It's the Spinning Babies lesson. I teach a more in-depth framework for emotion or for physical preparation in my program, and offer personalized counsel for the people that are in the program on like what's going on with their body and things like that. But the right kind of physical preparation can help to relieve tension in the musculature around the pelvis, because your pelvis is surrounded by muscles on each side of it, and also your pelvic floor here. And so if there's a lot of tension on one side of all these muscles or the other side, what can happen then sometimes is that the baby will enter and they'll be like, there's not a lot of space over here, I'm gonna just lean this way. And the baby might end up coming through your pelvis in a way that isn't really optimal. Positioning issues are only an issue if they become an issue. So sometimes, baby facing forward isn't an issue for someone, but it maybe is an issue for another person. We want to give your baby all the space that they need to avoid them kind of trying to compensate for lack of space because of all this tension, and then kind of favoring one side, and then that making labor a little harder. Positioning issues can lead to longer labors, more painful labors, and even increase the risk for C-section. And doing the Spinning Babies is an evidence-based way to reduce your risk for C-section. So doing the right kind of physical preparation can help your body relax too. So we want to physically support the relaxation and softness of muscles around the pelvis beforehand as a way to cope with labor, because we can make our journey of coping with labor easier if we do the right kind of physical and emotional preparation beforehand. And then also explore our relationship with relaxation and learn how to relax in pregnancy. In pregnancy, moms are so tired, and I was so tired in all my pregnancies. And it's also, some moms aren't tired, but it's pretty common to feel that way. And not saying that relaxation is going to give you all your energy back, but intentional relaxation is a way to help you get process out old energy, get in new energy, and feel a little more revitalized. When we let ourselves rest, our batteries charge, is another way of describing that. So that's something that practicing that in pregnancy can be helpful. When you're in labor, we want to think about, how am I going to relax? A lot of the time we focus on, how am I going to cope with the contractions? What am I going to do to cope? I'm going to learn about like the birth comb, the yoga ball, the TENS unit, which can go on your back and relieve back pain, the rebozo, or the scarf that we can use to shimmy on your back, the counter pressure where the partner like squeezes your hips, or a doula or support person, or they could do pressure right on your sacrum. All of those tools are really, really great. But like, what are we going to do for the other part, which is relaxation? Having a plan for that's important, and understanding that that's something that is necessary, right, to be able to have tools around. And so some tools I wanted to offer right now would be the use of props. Props are really great for coping, but often I find that when moms are in active labor, they don't really want to be on the yoga ball or the peanut ball as much, unless they're lying on their side with their leg up on a peanut ball. Otherwise, I typically see moms kind of wanting more of a firm ground. Like, I want to stand and rock back and forth and like put my arms on the bed, like lift the hospital bed up, or put my arms on a dresser or something, or kind of have more like of a firm, steady ground, and the ball can feel a little wibbly wobbly, which is why I think a lot of moms don't love it as much when they're in active labor. But it is a really, really amazing tool for specifically relaxing in between contractions. If you're standing, you could get the birth ball and stick it on the bed in front of you wherever you're giving birth, and you can lean into it like this. And then you can just rock like side to side. You can relax. You're going to go, oh. You can also do this. That's a great tool for relaxation, the horsey lips. Because it really, like, doing that just helps your whole body relax. It seems very silly, but it is very helpful. Maybe someone is like jiggling your thighs, doing downward strokes, or giving you emotional support around relaxation. Maybe you're doing your body scan meditation that you've learned and practiced with me in the coaching program so that you can release and relax all those muscles. In labor, you cope with the contraction, you rest in between. You cope with a contraction, you rest in between. So it's good to have a conversation with your support people and with yourself around what are the things that might support me in coping with contractions? What are the things that might support me in relaxing in between the contractions? What are the things that are going to help me feel safe to cope, feel safe to relax, right? So that we can continue to get out of our own way, which is to feel safe, because when we feel safe, we're not creating stress hormones, which can block oxytocin and make sometimes labor stall out and things like that. How are we going to feel safe during that process? So position is, I think position, I'll say it this way, is truly one of the most powerful things that you can know about and do in labor. It's a tool. If you go into labor without a lot of both knowledge on positions and connection to your intuition, to listening to your body and letting your body move, and you're like, I don't really know what to do or how to be, it can be harder to feel really empowered to be able to like let your body guide the way. So we want to, with position, first really cultivate this sense of trust and relationship to our body, and recognize most of the time your body is going to tell you what to do, and your body will tell you the right thing to do for you. And other people can give you suggestions. It's okay to outsource and ask for support and ask for tools and suggestions. And ultimately, you probably know better. If I was your birth worker, like at your birth, you probably know better than me what's right for you, because you're the one who is bringing that baby into the world. You're the one who's having that experience. And more advanced knowledge can come in if there's like a need for to get the baby to rotate. The baby's in a funky position, and that's something you would learn if you're in my coaching program, like how to do that. But outside of the presence of like a positioning issue, if labor is just unfolding smooth, your body will know what to do and will tell you what to do. You'll probably just intuitively feel like, I really need to be upright. I can't cope with labor at all when I'm on my side, but when I'm like sitting in this position, it works really well, right? And so some of the best positions for coping with labor are standing, lunging, kneeling, hands and knees, sitting on the toilet, sitting on a birth stool or a cub. Hospitals often have an inflatable cub. It's like a C-shaped seat you can sit on. Being in the shower, standing, rocking back and forth, having the water hit you. Being in the tub and hands and knees. If you have a bigger tub, like hands and knees leaning over the edge of the tub, reclining in the tub. And there are lots of different positions you can get into in lots of different places. And there isn't really like one position is best for this person, or whatever. It's just about doing whatever feels right for you. In early labor, doing hip circles on the ball, and doing lift and tucks, where during a contraction you get to the wall and lift your belly up. That will help your baby's chin tuck as they're engaging in the pelvis, which can sometimes prevent any positioning issues from happening. When you're in active labor, lifting one leg up can help open the mid pelvis. And so sometimes it's helpful to, let's say you're in hands and knees, just lift a leg up into a lunge for a little bit. You can do that with an epidural, or the other leg, you could totally get in hands and knees with an epidural and just kind of rotate legs. If you don't have an epidural and you're standing, you can put one leg up on a stool and just kind of rock that leg into, like rock into that lunge, if that makes sense. Rock into that other lunge. You can sway your hips back and forth. There isn't any kind of right or wrong way to do it, but learning about the different positions and how they can benefit labor, I think, can sometimes be helpful. I don't have time to go super deep into every one. I could spend an hour just talking about positions alone, but that's just like a little summary. I will say that when it comes to like pushing specifically and like reducing the risk for tears, hands and knees and side lying are the best positions through the research we have to reduce the risk for tearing. And you can do them with or without an epidural. Standing is also one of the best ones to reduce the risk for tearing that you can do without an epidural, if that makes sense. We do have research on coping with labor and labor progress and in terms of position. And we found that dancing, so there's a study on dancing specifically in labor. If you dance, so we are playing music and we are moving our body and we are dancing, that leads to faster labors and reduced pain scores. Pain is much more common when the baby gets a little stuck in the pelvis or in a misalignment in the pelvis in a way that isn't really optimal. It can make labor go longer and it can be more uncomfortable for you. Babies have to go through a series of a lot of movements to come into the pelvis and go out of the pelvis. They don't just go in and out, but they move through it. So moving the pelvis opens it up, opens it up, opens it up, and all these different areas to give baby a little more space to wiggle here, wiggle here, wiggle here, wiggle here, to help the baby to move through. If you have an epidural, you can labor every 15 minutes side to side with your leg up on a peanut ball. You can get in hands and knees and spend a little time in hands and knees. Lift one leg up with a little bit of a lunge for a bit, lift the other leg up to a lunge, and put your legs back down to neutral. You can even get into a squatting position when you have an epidural, and you can hold onto the squat bar at the hospital and you can rock your hips back and forth, right? So there are a lot of ways that you can move with or without an epidural. But when it comes to coping with labor, specifically with position, every position will give you a very different sensation and experience. So if you are in hands and knees and you're like, this is working, I feel my pelvis is kind of opening, I have lots of space, I feel baby getting lower, I feel that pressure. And then all of a sudden you're like, no, I'm not coping it anymore. It feels way too intense. I can't do this, Probably we need to get in a different position. And it's amazing what a different position can do. Truly, just getting into a different orientation in your body opens up more space in the pelvis. And maybe that position was working well, and now you're feeling like it's not right anymore because baby actually needs more space. They need you to move. So it's important to move throughout labor. One tip, if you're ever feeling like, oh, I'm really struggling and like nothing feels good, sitting on the toilet specifically can be really helpful, because on the toilet you have this natural pelvic floor release response. So your body will just spontaneously want to release all those muscles and relax. And that can be really helpful because holding tension can sometimes stall labor and make it a little bit harder and longer. So to cap everything off, I threw out a few labor coping external tools, but I'm just gonna go through those with you again briefly. So there's the rebozo. The rebozo is a scarf that can go over someone's back, and we can shake it like this. This is called Shake the Apples. There's a lot of different ways you could use the rebozo as a prop to help someone be upright, to help someone squat, hold themselves up with squatting. This is a tool from Mexican midwifery. It's a really, really incredible tool to support parents through pregnancy, birth, and postpartum. You don't have to buy a rebozo. You could just use a pillowcase, or a scarf. If you do have a doula at your birth asking if they have a rebozo, if they have skill with it or training, I think it would be a good question to ask, because it can be a really helpful tool to release pain and discomfort in your back. If you're having a lot of back pain, you could ask your provider about sterile water injections. Sterile water injections are an injection to 4 points around your sacrum. And so there are 4 points on each side of your sacrum, up high and then down low. And if we were to get a sterile water injection into the skin, so it's just sterile water they're putting into the skin, it can help block nerves and give you up to 4 hours of relief and really reduce pain in your back. And I have seen that prevent epidurals before. Another tool is a TENS unit. Some are wireless, some are wired. The wireless are more expensive. This has been a really helpful tool for a lot of people. Some people are like, it helps so much, I love this thing, and other people say it doesn't really do that much for me. So there are 2 different ways that it works. It's worth it to have it and to try it, because it could really help you, especially if you do have some pain in your back. The first way that it works is on the low setting. And basically what it does is it sends signals up your spine to your brain, and it tells your brain through the gate control theory that there's a stimulation happening. And your brain can't really interpret the stimulation from the contraction and the stimulation from the TENS unit, so it picks the TENS unit, which is very cool. So that is one way that the TENS unit works and how it can reduce pain. The next way that a TENS unit works is by turning it up higher, on a higher setting. When you turn your TENS unit on a higher setting, the way that it works then is by tricking your brain into thinking you are in more pain than you actually are in. So your brain will release more endorphins, and that will help you to cope with the contractions better. And so it is well researched that a TENS unit can reduce pain during labor. So it is something that I recommend everyone just have with them in case they do want to use it. It's not very expensive. You can usually get them for like $30 at a local like Walgreens or something like that. And if you want a wireless one, you could find those online and they are just a little bit more expensive. Then there's the use of water. Water is an incredible tool to help you cope with labor. It's known as the midwife's epidural. Some hospitals have standard tubs, some hospitals have bigger tubs, some birth centers have big tubs, and your home tub is your home tub. You can also get like blow up tubs if you're having a home birth. Being in the water during active labor can feel really soothing, and it is evidence-based that that can reduce pain during labor and during pushing as well. You can also use the water for crowning. If you're on land, you can get a warm compress and have that be applied to your perineum, and that is a way to reduce the risk of experiencing the ring of fire or experiencing pain, we found in research. So warm compresses are great too. If you're laboring at home, like my go-to is like get in the shower and let the shower hit your back, rock back and forth. If you have a partner and want them to be with you, you can face your partner and be skin to skin and just rock forward and back and just kind of switch legs. If you have one leg in front a little bit, just lean into that leg in front and rock kind of forward and back. On the next contraction, do the other leg. So you're just kind of moving your legs frequently. But yeah, the water can be really helpful. Also having warm washcloths or cool washcloths being applied to your head depending on what you need can be helpful as well. There is also a labor comb, which is a comb that people can take and put in their hand and squeeze it. The idea with this is that it's giving you a different stimulation. Some people find that that's really helpful as well. And then the last I'll say today is the double hip squeeze or the counter pressure, where a partner or support person either will put their hands with counter pressure directly on this back part of the sacrum. They put their hand right there. So you'll kind of see a little bit of a bulge on someone's back. You'll cup that with your palm and just push directly into it. And you can also lift up slightly to help even open the pelvis a little bit. Another thing that support people could do is put their hands on your low back. If your sacrum is in the center, if you can imagine it's in the center of my fingers right here. So we want to kind of frame it and put our hands on each side and then just squeeze together and also lift up just a little bit. This can help relieve pressure and even open the pelvis a little bit to help support baby progress. Well, that concludes our training today on my 5-step process to supporting parents in coping with labor. Thank you so much. This was really fun.